All right. Thanks, guys. It is 5 o'clock, and we are here with Pierrette Swan, one of our Work Like a Girl ambassadors. We put this hour together for you all to ask Pierrette a couple questions about her experience working like a girl. Hey, Pierrette, how are you?
I'm doing great.
Awesome. So thanks for tuning in today. We are excited to be streaming live on site at our WTRO studio here in Norfolk. Again, here is female welder, Work Like a Girl's Pierrette Swan. Today we're going to be asking Pierrette about her experience working in trades as a woman. I have a list of questions that I'm excited to ask, though please feel free to ask questions via the Facebook live chat. For those who don't know about what Work Like a Girl is, Work Like a Girl is a part of WTRO's American Graduate Getting to Work national initiative funded by Corporation for Public Broadcasting to create awareness of the great opportunities for young women in skilled trades. These are careers that when you think of them, usually think of a man in the job, such as electricians, welders, and truckers. However, they are rewarding, well-paying jobs for women, and we need to let them know about them for many reasons. A little bit about Pierrette. Pierrette is the manager of welding services for Weld America, a division of Kelowna Shipyard that offers advanced technical welding services. She has worked in welding manufacturing industry for 10 years with experience in X-ray pipe welding, welder training, manning, recruiting, and welding supervision. Pierrette grew up in Virginia Beach. She has a bachelor's degree in fine art, an associate's degree in business administration, and a systems engineering certificate. She is also a graduate from the apprentice school at the Newport News Shipbuilding, where she received 2 awards for her academic achievements. She has also been recognized by the Association of Manufacturing for Excellence in 2018 and 2021. Outside of work, Pierrette gives back to the community by serving on the board of directors for the Youth Volunteer Corps of Hampton Roads. She loves talking to other women about young girls and about careers in welding every chance she gets. All right. So thanks for joining us today. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. All right, so I'm going to check our forum here to see if we've received any questions just yet. And if not, I have questions for you that I know our audience would love to learn more about.
Sounds good.
Yeah. All right. So let's see. Okay. All right, no questions just yet. So I'm going to kick off with the questions that I put together.
Sounds good.
All right, Pierrette. My first question is, what piqued your interest in the trades field? Have you always enjoyed hands-on work?
So I absolutely have always enjoyed hands-on things. While I was growing up, I was very involved in art. So I took special art classes in middle school. I was in Virginia Beach Public Schools. I was part of the old donation center where you got to spend 1 day a week going to art classes. And then in high school, I actually did extracurricular classes with art. So I had done some jewelry making courses before. So I got a little taste of what soldering was like. And when I was looking for a career, I had heard about welding. I didn't know a thing about it. I thought it would be kind of like soldering. And I figured with my art background, I'd always heard that welding is an art form. It was something I was interested in learning about. I had used tools while I was in school and in college to build canvases, to build different structures. And so I was ready to get my hands dirty and start a career.
All right. That's an awesome answer. Thank you. I am checking on our sound here. A couple people are saying they can't hear. I want to make sure that they can. Let's see. I haven't received anything, so I think we can just keep moving.
Okay.
Awesome. So anything hands-on you were just attracted to, that's where you felt comfortable?
Absolutely. Don't get me wrong, I really always loved school and learning, but I truly enjoyed the subjects that allowed me to work with my hands. So I always gravitated towards the art classes, theater, different things where I could help build a set or paint something. I always liked to be active in what I was doing.
Awesome. We have a question from Tiffany Forrester. Coming fresh out of welding school as a woman, did you find it harder to find a job?
So I will say I have a slightly different experience than some folks that enter the welding field. I actually joined the apprentice school at Newport News Shipbuilding. So they hire people that don't have welding experience. So I was fortunate that my first welding experience and learning how to weld was at a job, at a career that I could continue once I completed welding school. So I do believe that it is trickier when you've gone to a welding school and then you need to find that job that will give you on-the-job experience. But I do know that there are plenty of companies that hire entry-level welders, so I probably would have pursued something in that. I just was very lucky to actually get to learn how to weld at my job.
Awesome. Next question from Amy Hauk. Did you have or do you have a mentor?
So I have had a few different mentors throughout my career. I definitely encourage people to have mentors, and I encourage mentoring. I will say that I've had the experience to provide some mentorship to people starting out in this industry, and it has taught me so much to be able to help mentor others. Also, an interesting thing for me is I have had female mentors that I really respected, and I sought them out because I like how they handled difficult situations. I feel like I could relate to them during times where I felt like I couldn't show my emotions, but I was frustrated with something, and I respected how they dealt with it. So that's really how I sought out mentors that were female. But sometimes I think that people think mentors have to look like you or have to be like you. And I have plenty of mentors that are men as well, and they are very helpful and caring and provide guidance to me as my career path grows.
All right, our next question is from Sarah Lockett. She asks, how do you use your artistic talents in your job?
That's such a wonderful question. I was able to use my artistic talents in my job just about every day. It is so true that when people talk about welding being an art form, it so much is. A story that I like to tell is my first day in welding school. So the first day I ever had to learn about what tools I would be using or what welds are supposed to look like. I said to myself, oh gosh, these things are so ugly. Welds are so ugly, and I'm just gonna have to stare at these things all day, every day, because that's my job now. And the more I got to learn about what makes a weld a good weld, a strong weld, they became more and more beautiful to me. And it was always my goal to make pretty welds because I wanted my welds to be really good. I wanted people to look at my welds and say, that's a solid weld. So I definitely think that creativity and aesthetics it's important in that, but also just having that art background, having that attention to detail. I really liked to draw, I liked to do painting, and that takes a lot of attention to detail, and attention to detail is just huge in the welding field. It's what makes welding good. It's what makes your weld strong.
Absolutely, and in art, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Next question's from Belinda Elliott. She asks, do you find you need to prove yourself to male peers to be seen as equal? Or did they seem to accept you right away?
So I would say a little bit of both. I am not gonna lie. When I was out there, especially when I was first starting out, I felt like I had to work twice as hard as all the guys around me to prove myself, to prove that I was worthy, that I deserved to be here, that I was good at my job. However, there were also plenty of people that just accepted me as their peer. There were plenty of older, experienced welders that took me under their wing. So I did get both worlds. One thing that I experienced early on that I believe relates is I learned very quickly that you hear horror stories about male-dominated fields, and one of the things that I experienced that I wasn't expecting is how helpful they are. They're gentlemen that are just really trying to help you out. So I would ask how to do something, and they would just try to do it for me. And I would have to say, wait, hold on, that's not what I want. I want to know how to do it so that next time I can do it myself without asking for help. So it's definitely a little bit of both. I also learned throughout my time on the waterfront welding that no matter how hard you work, no matter how much you do prove yourself, there's always going to be people. There's always going to be people out there that say, oh, she's no good, or she gets handed everything. And they're not going to be the people that matter, the people that are you're close with, your crew, the people you work around on a daily basis. Those are the ones that are your family. They're going to have your back. They're going to get in arguments with other people about how good you are. And you don't have to worry about the naysayers because they're always going to be there no matter how hard you work. So just make sure that you work hard for yourself and not for them. You don't have to worry about what they're going to say.
It's well said. Absolutely. Our next question is from Nancy Rogan. She asks, what is the coolest welding project you've worked on?
Ooh, that's a really great question. So I actually will say one of the coolest projects I worked on was within my first 6 months of being a welder. So I was brand new. I had only been out of the welding school for about 3 months. I was very much learning. And a job came up on the ship I was working on that was a struggle. It was a part where there was like an anchor, so it was a really tight spot. And apparently they had asked a lot of the older, more experienced guys to do this weld, but those guys said, it can't be done. I'm not interested, I'm not gonna do it. So because I was one of the smaller people on my crew, and because I was bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and ready for any, project to tackle, the general foreman came to me, and my foreman came to me and said, hey, we know that you're newer to this. Would you be willing to give it a try? And I said, yeah, I'd love to. As long as I'm supported, I'd be happy to. So that job actually involved, it was a space that was literally about this big. So as big as my arms are in a triangle. And there were 2 openings. So me and another welder had to crawl up through a hole and then crawl across into that triangle area where we laid down. There were heater bars heating up the job around us at 200 degrees. So it was like you were literally laying in an oven. And it had a rounded piece and a wall between us. So we couldn't see each other, and there was a small hole in the wall. So what was really incredible and tricky about it was that while I was welding, I couldn't see what I was welding, but he could. And while he was welding, he couldn't see what he was doing, but I could. So even though our mouths were covered in respirators, we had fresh air supplies being run to us, we had our welding hose, we had our air hose, all tangled up in us. We had to, and welding makes a lot of noise too while you're doing it. We had to yell to communicate to each other, to coach each other through what we were doing. I was super grateful for that partner, Dave. He taught me a lot. He had more experience than me, and he helped coach me through it. And actually, when everything was said and done, we won an award for that job. So I was just so grateful for the experience, and it was really my first taste of this is the incredibly shocking things that shipbuilders have to do to get the job done.
Right. Yeah, people don't think about that stuff.
Absolutely.
Wow. Our next question is from Adonis Anisette, And I'm going to make this a double question because
Okay.
I had another question that will relate to it. I want to go to welding school, but I'm not sure which school I should go to. Which school did you go to? Where did you get your training?
So, as I mentioned before, I was lucky enough to go to a welding school that was part of a shipyard. So I went to school at Newport News Shipbuilding. That they have a large welding school, they have a highly respected welding program, and they do start welders with no experience. So I was very lucky for that. I do highly recommend looking into jobs where you could learn on the job. But that's not necessarily always possible. There are so many places that are hiring welders right now that don't have the capabilities to do the training at their work site, or they don't have the budget to do the training. So they require people to go to training before they come work for them. So I can't necessarily say there's a program that's better for you or better for you. What I would say is take your time and do your research. Talk to different people in the industry. If you want to talk to me, you could always reach out to me, but find out what type of welding is it that I want to do. Do you want to be a pipe welder? Do you want to be a structure welder? Do you want to be a traveling welder? Do you want to be an underwater welder? Do you want to work in a shipyard? There's so many options out there, and depending on what career path you're really looking for, could tell you what type of welding school you want to go to. Now, the reverse of that can also be true. Maybe you have no idea. I honestly had no idea what my career path was going to look like when I started in welding. I just did it, and I let opportunities present themselves, and they did. So I would say, look into what works for you. You're going to look into different welding schools, and you're going to have to pick, is that within my budget? Does it make sense for me to go there? How long is it? Some of them are fast track programs. Maybe you need to start work soon. So you can't go to school for a long time without being able to be employed. So maybe you go to a 2-week or a 3-week or 2-month program. Those exist. Or maybe you just graduated high school, and instead of going to the traditional college, you want to go to a technical school and you want to take your time and spend that time. There are 2-year programs out there that are college. You get a degree when you complete it. So obviously there is no one right answer. What I would just say is take your time and do your research and try to figure out what works best for you. But no matter what you do, it's going to be a good experience. No matter what school you pick, no matter what job you apply to, it will help you build to the next step in your career.
Awesome. Next question is from Amy Hauk. She asks, do you work a traditional schedule? Overtime? ? Do you travel often? ?
So in the job that I am currently working, so now I am manager of welding services. So I work for a division that does advanced technical welding services. So we go out to different industries, we go out to different shipyards, and we either provide labor, so we provide welders for a short period of time during companies that have surges in work, or we provide turnkey services where we come in with our own welders, our own supervision, our own equipment, our own quality inspectors, and when we turn it over, the entire job is done. So the job I'm currently doing, although I'm no longer hands-on with my tools, I get to talk with a lot of different companies about their welding needs. I need to understand them. I need to be able to use the language. So my experience has really built to this point. So that being said, currently I do work what can be seen as a random schedule. I do have typical hours, Monday through Friday, but we are a service provider. So if I have to have an evening meeting, I'm going to go to an evening meeting. If work pops up on a weekend, I'm going to go in on a weekend. So it can be up and down. It can be that flexible structure. Also, COVID is a little weird right now, so I will say travel is limited. However, in this industry and in this position that I'm currently in, travel will definitely be a part of it, because I have to be able to travel to the different shipyards, whether it be in Maine, whether it be in California, or just the different industries, whether it be in South Carolina. I'm going to need to travel so that I could meet with those customers, so that I could attend those events where you network and you really learn about different customers. So that is to answer my current position. When I was in welding, there was a lot of overtime for welders. I will say that is one of the trades where I hear so much about overtime. I personally didn't like to work that much overtime. I just wanted to go to the beach on the weekends. But I worked with a lot of people that made almost double my salary just because they chose, when those 10-hour shifts came up, they wanted them. When those 12-hour shifts came up, they wanted them. When the weekend shifts came up, they wanted them. And they were able to put that money away and save, buy themselves a fancy car or a fancy house, and really take care of their families that way. So while I was in the hands-on welding, there was lots of opportunities for overtime. There are also lots of opportunities for travel. There's what's called, I don't know if it's industry-wide, but what I always heard it called in my shipyard was tiger teams. So there are teams of welders that go out to different areas and weld. And they might go to Hawaii, they might go to Japan. You get to see the world as a welder. There are just so many opportunities, and it's just up to you what you want to do.
Awesome. So yeah, opportunities there.
Yes.
Barbara Washer asks, well, she says, hey, Pierrette.
Hey, Barbara.
What would you say to young people, especially young women, who think they're not cut out for the kind of work that welders have to do?
So I think what I would say is try not to get in your head about it, and don't let outside people influence what you want for yourself. I think the most important thing about working in the trades is whether or not you want to do that. It's not all about this natural talent that we're all born with. It's hard work. So there may be certain jobs where you have to be able to lift a certain weight, or you have to be able to, climb a ladder and do it safely. So maybe there's some physical things that you might need to work on, but you can go to the gym, you can do that. You're capable of doing that if it's what you truly want. As far as welding goes, I understand that welding is a very highly skilled job, and maybe not everybody can do it. But I have a very strong belief that if people truly care and truly want to do it, and they want to take the time to practice it, to communicate with their mentor or their instructor, to understand what they're supposed to be doing, I do believe you can do it. I know when I entered this field, I was a waitress before I started to be a welder. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I had never done it before. And that first day at the shipyard, they drove us around. They gave us what's called a windshield tour. And I got to see these gigantic cranes and these dry docks that went down 40 feet into the ground, and these big tall buildings and forklifts. And it was overwhelming. I immediately said to myself, what am I getting myself into? Am I going to be able to do this? But I just committed, and I said, yes, I can do this. And that's how I went forward. So just don't let anyone talk you out of it if it's truly what you want, and put in the work and the effort, and you will be successful.
Awesome. The questions are flowing. Next question is from Anthony T. Spivey Jr. He asks, what's the best advice you could give to someone who's already learning how to weld in a welding school?
So what my advice would be to someone that's already in a welding program, but they're first learning how to weld is super frustrating. You might want to yell, you might want to swear, you might want to throw things, but that's not going to get you anywhere. So take the time to practice. What I have told people about when I was learning
welding, but even after 2.5 years of welding and I learned another type of process, it's like you do it and you do it and you do it and it's just not working and it doesn't make sense and it's frustrating. But then after a couple days of doing it, something just clicks and it starts working. And from that point on, it works. So it really does take time and practice, but some of my advice would be, don't take that frustration out on your instructor. They are there to help you. And don't let that frustration cloud your judgment on things. If you need to take a breath, take a drink of water, that's fine, but get right back to it and practice, practice, practice. There is no way to get better at welding other than practice and experience. So the only other thing that I would say as advice for someone that's starting a welding program would be, again, like I mentioned before, research the industry. Find out, where is it that I really want to go when I complete this school? Maybe you won't get that job right away, but you want to have a goal to work towards, because maybe it is, okay, I start at this smaller company and I weld there for a year or two, but I know my end goal is I want to work for this company and I want to be a welder there. So just take that time to do your research and to come up with a goal that you can work towards. And maybe that goal changes, and that's fine. My career path has been a zigzag. I would have never known day one as a welder that I would have had the different positions that I've had today. But once things came up and opportunities presented themselves, then my goals would change.
Excellent, excellent. Our next question is from Tidewater Tech, a local vocational school.
Awesome.
Thank you, Ms. Swan, for speaking to us, women who are looking to explore welding or currently working in the field. My name is Christy Miller, and I am the first female welding coordinator here at Tidewater Tech.
Awesome.
And I am enjoying this webinar. My question for you is, where do you see yourself in 10 years? And that's one I had for you as well.
So that is such a tough question for me. I will say the role I am currently in is fairly new. I started this career path at Kelowna Shipyard a little over 4 months ago. So I still have so much to learn about what I'm currently doing because it's all so new to me. Learning about business and learning about the industry as a whole, about what the different needs of companies are, about the different types of welding that are used outside of shipyards, and the different, governing agencies of how procedures are written, how procedures are tested. So I know that I have a lot to learn in my current role. That is where my focus is at the moment. I don't know what the future holds for me. As I kind of mentioned before, when I entered this career, I didn't know all the different opportunities, and now I'm starting to be exposed to those as my career progresses. But opportunities started to present themselves because in this industry, just like in all industries, it is who knows you. So maybe somebody saw you working one day on a project and they saw how hard you work, or they saw how careful you were to clean up your job. And somewhere down the line, they recommend you for that next position. So I've always known that opportunities will present themselves, and I'm very open to that. If I had to sit here today and say, what do I want for myself 10 years from now? 2 things I would mention is moving up in the company that I'm currently in. I would love to see my division grow and get bigger and bigger, and I would love to move up into higher positions within that company. But there's also the possibility that maybe one day I start my own welding company. I think there's a lot of opportunity for that, and every day throughout my career I've been learning different things. So there's potential. Maybe I'll have a team of hardcore female welders out there in the industry, or maybe I'll help educate welders. I just know that I want welding to be a part of it.
Awesome. A little bit more of a creative question. 3 words that come to mind when you think about a woman working in trades.
Strong, and that can be mental or physical, smart, and powerful. I know those aren't necessarily terms that every woman would think to describe themselves, but whether it be in trades or anything else, I think a woman that knows what they want and are willing to work hard to achieve it are all three of those things.
Right on. And let's take a look at our question. Questions are slowing down here a bit. Awesome. Everyone's loving your answers. Here's my last question, which I love asking people about anyone in their career field. What about your career do you love? Your day-to-day life, working as a welder?
Absolutely. So one of the biggest things that I have been grateful for throughout my career is, and this is something that has been talked about, especially about manufacturing and trades careers, is the ability to see the results of your work on a daily basis. There's nothing wrong with the different office jobs that might be out there, but sometimes that satisfaction is harder to find because you work on a project and maybe you never get to see the results of your hard work, or maybe it's so far down the line. But as someone in the trades, literally every single day, you get to see the results of what you did. You get to take ownership, you get to take control, and you get to be proud of the weld you put down, or the electrical panel you installed. And that's just a huge accomplishment and a prideful thing that gives you satisfaction on a daily basis.
Awesome. Excellent. And this is one that I'm sure that you are asked frequently. What is the biggest misconception you found people have about jobs in skilled trades in whole?
That is a great question. So I had the pleasure of being a welding recruiter, being the hiring manager that hires welders for a little over a year of my career. And what I heard a lot of people say was that women would not be interested in doing these jobs. I think that's such a huge misconception. I think that there are some barriers out there that may prevent women from pursuing careers in trades, or that they may not have been exposed to it at a young age, or they might not have an advocate in their life that's telling them it's for them. But to say that women would not be interested in trades because they're dirty, or they're hard work, or they're physical or demanding, that to me seems very silly. Because when you think of jobs that are considered traditionally for women, so we're going to think about our nurses, or our childcare workers, or our teachers, or our cosmetologists. They are working with their hands. They are crawling around on their knees. They are dealing with bodily fluids. They are dealing with mixing chemicals. And it translates straight across to working in the trades. They're doing the same types of things. They're doing the same technical work. And although there may be an initial learning curve to understand the intricacies of the trades, I think it's just very misguided to think that women would not be willing to do this type of work, because they already are. It's already what you see women doing on a regular basis.
That makes complete sense. And I love the comparison that you made. Next question is from Belinda Elliott, asks, do you find people in skilled careers can start out making a pretty good salary, or do they need to work their way up?
So absolutely. I think that's a great question. I have found that skilled trades pays very well. Even starting out, even entry-level jobs, it obviously depends on who you're working with or where you're working, but what I have found is a majority of trade jobs hire an entry-level person anywhere between maybe $14 and $19 an hour. So when you think about what minimum wage is, you are clearly double that without even having a background in it at some points, and there's only room to grow. Also, there is, as we mentioned before, a lot of opportunities for overtime in the trades. Maybe not on every project, maybe not at every business, but there is a lot of it out there, and that could double your hourly rate. That could, multiply it by 1.5. And so most of the people that I worked with when I was starting out, within their first 2 to 3 years in this career, they were buying their first house. And that is not common in a lot of the careers that, I grew up hearing about, or a lot of the people that are going to college and, they're going into debt and they're not sure what to do when they graduate college and they're still trying to figure it out. So now they have a debt that they have to pay back and they don't have an income that they're making. So obviously there is a correct pathway for everyone. Everyone's a little different, but for anyone looking to pursue the trades, there is great money out there to be made, and it is a great way to support your family and to buy the things that you want, as long as you pay attention to your finances and as long as you don't blow your paychecks and you save up. So I would say great advice is, when you're making really good money, the first thing you should do is get some financial training, get some financial advisement, so that you don't waste away all of that money that you're making.
Awesome. Next commentary and question is from Anna Portella. She says, I'm currently in school for welding and just wanted to say that listening to women like you makes me feel so much more confident about my capability and strength moving forward into the field in the future.
That's
How
awesome.
do you stay motivated and power through on those days that are especially frustrating?
I think that's a really great question. It does take a lot of self-motivation. The drive has to come from you, but however you get that, I support. There were periods in my career where the haters only drove me to, prove them wrong. So as I mentioned earlier, do it for yourself. But there are gonna be periods where maybe that is what inspires you, because you just want to show them that they're wrong. There have been periods like that for me. I think my main motivation is I want to be happy. I want to love what I do. I want to enjoy what I do. I've heard of so many people, their whole career going to work was a chore, and I don't want to feel that way. So it's important to me to always make opportunities for myself to move up, to learn, to grow, and to experience different things, because at the end of the day, my motivation is I want to be happy.
Awesome. I think that's the goal, right?
Yes. That's what people write songs about, right?
Right? This question is great because it relates back to, working hands-on, but now you're in a more of a management position. Barbara Washer asks, there's probably no such thing as a typical day, but what does a typical day look like for a welder? And what does a typical day look like in your current role?
That is a great question. So in my experience, a typical day as a welder, which honestly, it's like the dream, in my opinion. I am a very structured person. I am a type A person. I want to know what my expectations are. So to me, my experience as a welder was within a shipyard. So it was similar in some ways from what I hear to having a military background. So it was very structured. So we came in the morning and we had a meeting with our crew. So our crew might have been 10 to 14 welders and a supervisor. So every morning we got to have a powwow with our supervisor, or like a huddle where we got to talk about what's going on, what are the safety concerns that we should always be remembering, what are our goals for the day, then the supervisor would hand out our assignments for that day. So maybe it was the same thing you were working on yesterday, but each and every day you were assigned a daily task. So you knew what was expected of you that day, you knew what your goal was. Then you would go to your job and you'd have to set up that job. So maybe your welding equipment is already on that job. Maybe you need to go find it. Maybe you need to find yourself a ladder. Maybe you need to go find a wire feeder and hook it up and plug it in. You would have to double check everything, make sure that you signed your paperwork, make sure that you made sure that your metals matched so you didn't weld on the wrong thing, make sure that there was nothing flammable around you. So you had a daily checklist of things that you had to do. Then you would weld. So for several hours you would weld, and although that may sound monotonous to some people, to me it was always super interesting. The molten metal, the puddle, doesn't always do what you want it to or what you expect it to. So every day I felt like I was in a competition with myself to get better, to make a prettier weld, to get the job done more efficiently. And so it was exciting to be under the shield all day because you're interacting with a moving, creative substance and you're trying to control it. That's what you're trying to do. So you weld for several hours, you break for lunch. After lunch, you meet with your team again. You meet with your crew. Has anything changed? Has anything come up? You talk about if you have any struggles, and then you go back out, you weld for a few more hours. And then as you're nearing the end of the day, you break down your job, you pack up your tools, and you meet with your crew one final time to make sure everyone is safe, and then you go home. So I don't know, I guess in some ways that might not sound like the most exciting thing, but realistically it was. Every single day the job was different. Sometimes I was in a weird position, or sometimes I was welding with my arms straight up in the air all day long. Sometimes I was curled up in a ball under something. Sometimes I was using a mirror to see what I was welding. So those hours where I say you're just welding, a lot of things can be happening during those. Now my job is quite different, and it is different on a daily basis. But right now I am helping to develop our new division, and the biggest part of that is letting people know that our services are out there, that we provide quality welding services, and that we're there to meet our customers' needs and to help them get the job done. At the end of the day, whether we're helping a business, whether we're helping the Navy, whether we're helping the country, we want to always be able to be there to provide quality, to provide efficiency. So a lot of my job today, because we are new, is getting out there and talking with customers and finding out what their needs are and letting them know whether or not we're capable of helping them meet those needs. So there are some days where I might be stuck in my office a bit. I'm sending out emails, I'm making cold calls, but I'm really creating a network of people. This is my first time really outside of the shipyard that I spent so many years in, where I'm meeting people all throughout the industry. I'm getting to know them, I'm making those connections, I'm having those meetings. Sometimes they're on Zoom, sometimes they're face-to-face, but a huge part of what I'm doing now is talking to people about welding. And my days, like I said, they do get different. Sometimes they're full of meetings, sometimes they're full of emails, but it's surely different than when I was a welder.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Pierrette. I dropped a comment into the feed to see if we had any last questions. Here we go. Nancy Rogan asks, how long did it take from when you started welding to your position today?
So I have been in this industry for just over 10 years. So I started welding in 2011. So another thing that people should know is, obviously it's great to start young. So many people don't really know what they want their career path to be so early in life, but luckily we do have programs nowadays that allow students to start exploring that at a high school level before they even enter the workforce. I was out of college already by the time I started welding. I was at least a year out of college. So it's never too late to start your career path. Yes, I was still somewhat young, but I really started it after I had spent all of that time going to school for something different. I didn't know what I was going to do with that degree. And then I decided to pursue a career in welding. So in 10 years, I was able to start as a structure welder that had never welded a day in their life. Within 5.5 years, I was an X-ray pipe welder. After that, I got the opportunity to teach welding. I got the opportunity to oversee welding training on a nuclear facility. I got an opportunity to man welders, so I got to say, here's where a welder goes, what project they go on after they come out of the welding school. So I did that in a supervisor role. I then got the opportunity to hire welders. So it really was a gradual step-by-step where I got a lot of different experiences that built up to the moment where a new division was being created, and they were willing to invite me to be a part of their team with my background, knowing that I still had a lot to learn about this industry. So it's amazing how many different job opportunities I've had in the past 10 years, many of them within the same company, but just so many different opportunities that are related to welding. It's not just one thing. It's not you're a welder and you have to be a welder the rest of your life. There are welding inspectors, there are welding engineers, there are welding supervisors, there are welding instructors. There are so many careers that can stem from having a trade as your baseline, and you will be so much more successful at them having started in that trade. There are people that are, engineers or weld engineers that have never really done the job themselves. So there's a communication barrier when they're talking to the mechanic about the job. If you start in a trade, you have such a good foundation to grow in that trade. So I think it's a great way to start your career. And again, just in my short 10 years in the industry, I have had nothing but amazing opportunities.
Is it ever too late to start training?
Absolutely not. When I was in the welding school, like I said, I was in my mid-20s. Some people were fresh out of high school, just turned 18. Some people were in their late 30s, in their 40s, and they were doing the same thing as me, and their careers have grown just like mine. So it is absolutely never too late to start in the trades industry. I know many people that went down a career path and then decided, this isn't really what I want to be doing with my life. And they started a career in the trades, and they are happier than ever.
Awesome. Some commentary here. Barbara Washer says, you're a superhero, Pierrette. Thanks for sharing your experience, and thanks to WHO for facilitating this awesome discussion.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Alrighty. I wanted to let everyone know you can visit amgrad.whro.org/resources for more information on local vocational schools and training. And Pierrette, I just wanted to say, do you have any last remarks for your audience?
Just thank you all so much for being a part of this. Thank you so much to WHRO for allowing me to do this and for having the Work Like a Girl campaign. I think it's so important, especially to let young ladies hear that trades is a potential career for them, and for them to be able to start thinking about it at a young age. And sometimes that just takes being able to see an example in the industry that you can relate to and that you can see yourself in. And I am just so grateful for the opportunity to be doing that and be able to talk to people in the community about what a wonderful career welding is.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you. And this video will be available for sharing following this. And I hope everyone has a great night.
Awesome. Thank you.